It was a big deal for me. Half the crew were laughing, half were screaming. Weirdly, my good friend Celeste Barber.
Can you just pick up that name for me?
You know, I was born without a left hand. Oh, it's beautiful! Now that's funny, right?
In this episode, I bring you closer to someone whose theatre career has made audiences laugh across the globe. He's an actor, writer, and thankfully for us, his film career has brought him home to star in Seriously Red. It's Thomas Campbell.
What is this drink?
Look, this is a New Zealand staple. It's called Raro. It's a powdered cordial that my nana used to buy when we went to visit New Zealand as a kid. And it just brings back memories of my childhood.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's a first feature by Dollhouse Pictures, and Crew Boylan wrote a part for herself about a Dolly Parton impersonator, or a young woman who's a bit lost and kind of finds herself suddenly in the world of celebrity impersonators. And I play her best friend, childhood best friend, who kind of holds that mirror back up to her when she starts to lose sense of who she really is.
Can you tell me a little bit about the role?
Weirdly, my good friend Celeste Barber, at the time I was doing a...
Can you just pick up that name for me?
Sorry, here she is. She's very small.
Hi, Celeste.
Yeah, sorry.
How are you?
You know, viewers might not know. You might think I'm talking of Celeste the elephant.
Yeah.
She had been sent the script and she asked me to read it. So I read it and went, oh yeah, it's quite good. And then about a year later, I self-taped. It actually reminded me slightly of my relationship with Celeste. Volatile at some points, but then very, you know, we're like brother and sister.
I have a little video here that you might recognise your audition for Seriously Red.
You are out of your mind! Friends,
Very large.
It's
acting.
large.
Yeah.
But you booked this role.
I remember booking it and losing my shit because this was a major role in a film with Rose Byrne and Bobby Cannavale, so it was a big deal for me. They had reached out and said, do you have your license? And I was 38 at the time and I didn't have my license. So I had to get on the train to Newcastle, of all places, sit my learners, booked my Ps, and then they were like, it's okay, as long as you can vaguely drive a car. I couldn't because I nearly caused a car crash on set.
How did you almost cause an accident?
It was a tall, big driveway up to this big fancy house for a scene. And we were having a fight in the scene. So I was like, well, he'd be aggressively driving. And the third take, I just accelerated. The car spun off the dirt road, slid down a thing and missed a tree by about that much. Half the crew were laughing, half were screaming.
Talk to me about casting, your experience of casting.
Casting for me has always been very light on. Like, I've never been the actor to get 3 castings a week. And I'm not going to accuse an industry of something that I can't lock down with hard, cold evidence, but I'm pretty sure most of the time there already has been a conversation about, oh, this guy doesn't have a left hand, what do you think about that? And then if I get into the room, then that conversation's already well on its way. So I always feel like if I'm going for the casting, that I have a shot. The other thing is when I studied at drama school, the first thing the school got me was a prosthetic hand. So that in itself is telling me you won't work in the industry unless you normalise yourself. And I tell new graduates that story these days and they're like, what? I arrived at NIDA in the year 2000 and I got a prosthetic hand. Now, I would never wear a prosthetic hand in my real life. I just find it very weird. But I was told you won't work. So I wore it. And I did about 4 or 5 ads, commercials in the late 2000s. And then I moved to London. And by the time I came back from London, I went, I'm not wearing that hand anymore. No thanks. And I've never got an ad since.
How has comedy been a tool that you've used?
I think, I was born without a left hand, even before I understood what othering is from other kids, it was happening to me. And I thank or however I was born to have the smarts or the nous to be able to kind of navigate that. I remember in like year 4, Katie Jansen and Jane Stoddart were like the 2 hot girls of my year, my class. Somehow I made them laugh on the first day, and I had that feeling of like, it sounds quite sad, but well, it felt acceptance, And so I learnt pretty early on that being funny or silly was a connecting tool to everyone in the world. So yeah, comedy is just how I connect, and my life motto is have fun, be silly. So I try and keep that element in my work as well as life. But yeah, I did some stand-up comedy, which is kind of the pinnacle of comedy, I suppose, in London when I was living there. It was so horrible.
Did you bomb?
Well, bomb. It was stories about people's response to my hand, right? Show called One Hander. It was a real struggle to get audiences to go, laugh with me, not pity me, because that's a real thing I find in my experience. One of the stories in the show was a woman once at drama school was coming around talking about makeup and how important it is to keep your face in tip-top shape, and then also she went, and it's also not just your faces, it's your hands. As actors, they should always be well manicured. In fact, I'm going to come around now and check all your hands. So my whole year and I all just did this, and she's walking away around the room commenting on cuticles and nails, and she gets to me and she's just commenting on my right hand going, oh darling, you've got to moisturise and don't bite your nails. And then, no word of a lie, she went, oh, it's beautiful! Grabbed it. Now that's funny, right? But sometimes the audiences would err like, oh, this is hard for you. And that's what that's what I buckled up against. Yeah, see, funny, you get it.
It's funny, and I think you're very funny, and